Welcome back, everyone. I am the Depressed and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 18. So some slight changes to the box. I believe Liana and Sarika, or Celica, sorry, have lightning headbands now, which is the thing that lets you, if you're adjacent to somebody, you can give themselves and a random adjacent ally immunity to displacement. It's just kind of there. I mean, most cases, I'm not the only person I'm really concerned about for displacement is Icemelda, and Icemelda is not someone I generally want to fight against anyway, which I've constantly been learning that lesson over and over again this season. The other change is I did replace Hilda with Karika. I think that's her name. But I essentially wanted more long-range attacks, and there is a helmet. One of the newer helmets that lets it where if there's no enemies nearby, you get plus skill damage and plus AoE damage, which is pretty much made for her because of course her 3C has that long range AoE strike that does like 0.6 times damage, which is really good. So hoping to kind of make her into another sniper. There's also one other change, but I won't talk about it until we actually get into the match. As for my opponent, some faces we don't usually see too often, which is always nice. We see Betty, which I would say I don't see her too often, but she's in pretty much all the tryhards in AI Arena, which is, by the way, do not try hard in AI Arena. I literally have an Anna as my defense in AI Arena, and I have over 20,000 points. You don't need to try hard on AI Arena. Please stop putting Betty in your box. Anyway, besides that, we got Agnes. Yeah, kind of nothing too crazy here. It looks like a lot of single target. It looks like, but we do have a little bit of AOE as well. So I guess you can say it's a mixed box. There are 3 tanks and only 2 healers. Technically, I would just say there's 1 healer because Agnes is more passive healing in most cases. So yeah. Got that going for us. My opponent did ban Isolde right off the bat. And I banned their Isolde. So one of the things that I guess I've been doing in this season is I've been favoring banning Isolde over Icemelda, and I honestly think that's been a poor choice in majority of my matches. Even if I become immune to displacement or even immune to stun, it's just if she reaches you and gets the initiative on you, she just pumps out a lot of damage, and there's not much you can do about it. And she can really cover a lot of ground using her chain and move again. And if she happens to have, what do you call them? Divine boots or whatever they're called, the ones that let you move again after doing damage, she can cover the map pretty easily and easily outrange any of my, even my highest mobility characters or even my highest range characters. Anyway, I go for Silvaria right off the bat. It's been a while since I've opened with a Silvaria. They take out my Ishian, take out my Liana, and they bring in Rosenseal. So since I did replace Hilda with Karika, I have only 3 tanks and 4 healers. And there's honestly a combination of bans you can do that really kind of hinder this setup. That's why it's usually a situation where you're either going all or nothing for tanks and healers, because either you go 4-4 and you can pick whatever you want in the beginning, or you just go practically nothing or bare minimum because you're not going to have control over what tanks or healers you're going to get at that point. But I wanted to try it out because it's kind of the final week anyway, so we'll just see how it goes. So yeah, I go ahead and ban Zerda. I get rid of Icemelda, which I'm really thankful for. At this point, there's nothing in this box that really scares me. Yeah, none of this really scares me. Agnes will be kind of a problem, but not the end of the world. I go ahead and grab Grin Shield. This will mainly get me a faction buff. Also, it gets me a way to get past guard if I really need to. They go ahead and get rid of Rosenseal, get rid of my Nemea. At this point, I'm down to 2 healers, so I need to pick one. They pick Kyura. I go ahead and get rid of Eshian, get rid of Hilda. I don't want to deal with any crit negation. I go ahead and grab Almeda. They get rid of my Awakened one. and they get rid of Icemelda. They grab. Oh yeah, also I did ban Hilda because they had 3 tanks, so getting him down to 2 would force them to pick a tank. So they pick Christiane. This one's a cavalry. I get rid of Agnes, get rid of Celica. This is mainly just because I don't want to deal with any of the additional self-resing. Go ahead and grab Karika. And yeah, at this point I have plenty to... I have my choice of tank almost, and I have and there's Celica as well, but I don't really care about that. So they ban Christiane, get rid of Celica, so I have my choice of Lightbringer or Freya. They grab Lena. So I go and get rid of the Awakened one, get rid of Tensei Jessica. And so that leaves them with either Betty or SP Freya. So they take Betty. Alright, first, am I saying the right name? Yes, Karika. Okay. So let's go over our stuff. Standard kit for Almeda. I got Roast, Almeda Never Bows, Act as I See Fit with Windbloom Chanters. Karika, I went with Fairy Spirit Prophets. Went with her Teleport, her AoE, and of course her 3C. Like I mentioned before, she has that helmet that gets, which I'll hopefully be able to show off, that gives her extra damage. Besides that, we got Lightbringer here. I brought Strengthen because I don't actually have a way of buffing Karika. So that's pretty much what that's for. I brought Royal Protectors. They take 30% less magic damage. I also have, of course, the Tiamat Armor, where if I'm mixed class, I'll get even further reduced magic damage. Everything that's here is magic damage except for Betty and Christiane, so don't really need to worry too much about that. Grin Shield, War Falcons, Herx, we got Cold Shield, 3C, and Air Slash, and then of course we got Silvario with Deck Gunners and her usual kit with Disarm and 3C and Sneak. Alright, over here we got Christiane in Cavalry class with Phalanxes. Got 3C, Floral Realm, and Fallen Petals. So if you have her Inscription enchant, you do not need Fallen Petals. So, not sure what the plan there was. Betty here. So Betty has Aegis Guards, which I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen those. They take reduced range damage, and if you're in non-defensive terrain, they get additional attack and defense. So they're pretty good in terrain where it's all flat. She's got Skill Swagger, which just reduces skill for nearby enemies. We got Solidarity, which just makes her get more defense when there's allies nearby. And then she's got Blade Storm, which is her 3C. This makes it so she self-reses 3 times against fixed damage. Or no, not fixed damage, from AoE damage. And then, let's see. And then it essentially expands her talent range, I believe. Yeah, I believe it gets... Oh, actually, no. What this does is whenever her talent triggers, it does an additional debuff to to that target and everything around it with damage reduction. Betty is interesting. She was kind of supposed to be like the anti-AoE unit, but she really does not fit in. The problem is she doesn't live long enough to actually make that work. Also, her fixed damage usually doesn't do enough damage to actually stop the AoE from happening in the first place. But what she's usually used for is in AI Arena, because most people like to just do AoE spam in AI Arena just so they can get their 5 wins very quickly. And anyone that tryhards will try to put this in their defense box to be very annoying and force the player to actually, manually do the match. So yeah, I don't really like Betty, mainly because of what she's done to AI Arena. But AI Arena is not a big deal in the first place, so that no one likes Betty. Anyway, we got Lena here. We got Dragon Slave, Black Hole, and Dark Reaper, no 3C. With Crystal Warlocks, we got Rose and Seal, full heals with Shrine Maidens. She is Mage class. And we got Kyura here, who's... we got 3C, Guard Ignore, her Guard Ignore attack, and then we, of course, got her Teleport. And then she's got Sorceresses. Alright, so nothing too crazy. Really, it's all going to depend on how far Kyura and Lena move. That'll kind of decide a lot of this. So I'm starting slow as usual because I need to see what my opponent's doing. So I go ahead and put up some reflections. I did get a Tenyo Breeze on Karika, which is pretty nice. So I go ahead and do a teleport 1 step forward. So the buff she gives for the teleport only lasts for 1 round, so it really only applies to her. You might have also saw the new helmet proc, so here's the new helmet. So the 10% damage is from her teleport, and then there's the 5% skill damage and 10% AoE damage, and that's from her helmet. So needless to say, she does quite a bit. Thanks to the +3 mobility, though, she was able to get to max stacks on her talent. So now she has a range of like 11, I think. Yeah, I think she has a range of 11 with Brilliant Flash now. So effectively, she can get all the way to here, just from where she's at. I believe that's how it works. Anyway. So yeah, Betty's right here. I could actually snipe Betty from here, because that's 9 spaces away. Also, I really like this function where you can change the ranges based off what tile you have clicked. Anyway, so that was that. My opponent's going to go... Yeah, so my opponent's just going to go hang out in the corner. Pretty much any slow tank push box I have an advantage on, because I can just snipe freely and kind of win. It's really rush boxes that I have the most trouble with. Yeah, so my opponent's just taking their time. Miracle, which does damage reduction, did give a buff to Lena as well because of her helmet. So I go and get set up for sniping. My only target is either Christiane or Betty. I'm pretty sure I can't one-shot Betty, but I can... Or not Betty, I can't one-shot Christiane here. So yeah, I'm going to be going straight for Betty herself, so her Aegis guards don't really help here. She does have 935 defense, and that's kind of all she's got going on here. So can I do 14,000 damage? A little bit of fixed damage. I ignore 20% of her defense. I need to do 13,500. Didn't crit, but I got 17,000, so that was more than enough to kill. Yeah, so I went... so I actually had a choice there. I could have opened with Karika first. Karika can get to about here and literally shoot Lena with her 3C. But I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get kill or not. I essentially need to do... I need to do about 24,000 AoE damage, because the way AoE damage works is it shows the full damage and then it splits it in half, is usually how it works. Or at least splits it in fractions. I do 27,000. That's enough to get a kill, and that's the match. So yeah, nice showing of Karika. I think I do want to keep her in the box, but we'll see how it goes. But that's pretty much it for this season. This is the last week. I did try to go for one more match after this, just to see if I can get a quick gold 3. But I unfortunately did not win. My opponent went Ice Melda, and a combination of Ice Melda with Ashian is pretty brutal, because then they could not only give an act again, but they can give an act again with additional mobility. So what my opponent would do is they would actually do the Ice Melda's AoE to make it swap to the other version. That's a lot easier to use, and then rush in with that, and then freeze half my party. So it's pretty rough. Yeah. So like I said, this season I've been pretty blasé about it because the meta is pretty rough right now. There's a lot of we thankfully didn't run into too many of the usual guys, but there was still a great number of boxes where they had Isolde, Ice Melda, and I mean I have the same thing, so I mean I can't really say much about it. I do think I need to stay with a 4/4 box if I want to stick with tank push. So I think I'm going to go ahead and drop the Awaken one from now. The Awaken one is not very useful in my box, we'll put it that way. Awaken one's actually been kind of surprisingly annoying lately. By herself, she doesn't really do much. She can't really kill any of my units. But what she can't, and I usually don't have to worry about her displacing anyone. But what I usually have to worry about is her talent throwing Spellbound out. And that's usually enough they'll usually throw it on characters that will make it so I have less range, essentially. So they'll throw it on Ice Melda. They'll even throw it on Silvaria to make it harder for me to set up a snipe position. And that alone will buy my opponent a round to essentially get themselves set up and then rush me. And that's usually what ends up happening. So I have to be a lot more careful about the Awaken one. Either I have to ban her sooner, or I need to take a healer that can stop her at that point. And even then, though, even if I take a healer like Rose and Seal or Almeda to deal with the Awakened one, the problem is usually it usually happens when I'm player 2, in which case my opponent would have initiative anyway, and so they can literally just first action, have her do a thing, throw out Spellbound, and then I can't. I'm at that point I'm stuck anyway. So that's kind of what I've been dealing with lately, which is rather annoying. So yeah, I replaced Tilda to get Karika, but honestly we need 4/4 if we want to actually have control over what DPS we start with. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her back. I believe that's my plan, as soon as I remember where she's at. She's over here. Okay. And I believe next week, or this week rather, is going to be the new LLR unit, which is, I don't remember her actual name, but it's essentially better version of Chris. And more than likely I'll be replacing Namiya with her. She's going to be pretty difficult to deal with in future boxes, because what class she is actually influences what sort of capabilities her summon has. And if she's holy class, then she's just going to be annoyingly durable with a lot of extra heals and some additional mobility here and there. If she's mage class, though, I'll be dealing with additional fixed damage from electric tiles, but also dealing with a pet that can potentially bypass guard. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that's going to play out. But it also means I have another character that can be ban bait, which will be nice. That's kind of the biggest situation with this box, is they'll usually ban my key units. That's part of the reason why we've been doing a 4/4 setup, is just so I can actually have a bit more initiative on what I can use as my ace to actually kill the opponent. So I'm hoping LLR Chris will be that new ace to play around with. Also, she can provide some additional passive healing and stuff, which is definitely really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this formation for now. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I don't mind being silver 1. It does mean I'm not going to be in the top 512 this time, but I'm kind of okay with it. I haven't been doing particularly well. My win percentage is still around 50%, but my luck tends to be I always get the worst opponents whenever I'm about to rank up anyway. So it is what it is. Also, this probably will mean I'll be starting in bronze next season, which will be kind of nice. It is kind of nice. I mean, obviously it's fun to win, but the other thing is just it's kind of neat to see, faces that I don't usually see because of how tight the meta has become. But at the very least, I do look forward to having a little bit of a break from this, so I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I am the Depressed Dior. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 18, and I'll see you guys next season.